everyone thinks like, oh, he made enough money to leave the military, so he did. No, I just got bored. When I first joined the military, the Marine Corps, it was like running and gunning and combat and training and exercises, and it was a blast. And then the war ended and everything calmed down, and I got promoted a bunch, and I got stuck in a windowless vault with no cell phone access half the day, and I was like, this sucks. Why am I doing this? Like, so at that point it was like, yeah, I'm making more money out of the military than in. I'll take it and go do my own thing.
Your sales software shouldn't be a bummer, and when you step inside your CRM, you should actually feel equipped to do your best work. It's kind of like being in the pilot seat, but having all the easy-to-use controls. Well, that's what HubSpot's doing with the new Sales Hub. It's all designed to have you win quarter over quarter, year over year, all the way from the intuitive prospecting workspace using AI-powered tools. The point is to reduce your workflow, all the work on managing leads, the follow-ups, basically making closing deals a no big deal at all. So this is how you can wrangle your day-to-day tasks using a seamless platform that basically navigates all the contacts, calls, analytics, all in one spot. ChatSpot is also the AI-powered tool that helps you personalize a lot of things in your CRM. It's basically like little assistants working for you. You just got to prompt it, and basically it pulls up a contact, sums up different sales, or researches your competitors. It helps you automate a lot of things during the sales pipeline, so your team or yourself can take your time back. And the whole point is to make this easier and more effective for you. So this is the time for you to close more deals and get you on track for your best Q1 yet. Learn more about HubSpot Sales Hub over at hubspot.com/sales. Hey, today I brought on someone that is super fun. He's super real as well, and very fascinating. So selfishly, I've been thinking about real estate and thinking about creative ways to leverage real estate to diversify and to increase that style of my investing outside of my normal business here. And also, I've been thinking a lot about YouTube and that whole outlet and how to think about creating videos and how to show up and all these different things. So this guy's doing it all. His name is David Joseph Pere, and I would say he's a real estate maverick mogul in this time, because this guy's been on a crazy growth trajectory. He's a veteran as well, so he speaks to that community a lot. And on this episode, we really dove into how he negotiates his deals, how he does these crazy deal making. He even snagged a property where for zero down, didn't pay a penny for a whole year. He talks about the whole story and how that grew, and I won't spoil it here. So really, if you're thinking about real estate, and maybe you're feeling like you're priced out, maybe you're in a pricey area, or you're just not savvy enough, or you just don't have the experience, well, I think David's going to flip that script for you. There's a lot of house hacking wisdom and all these cool strategies he gives you here. And he talks a lot about his self-doubt, because he's been growing very quickly lately through his real estate, through masterminds and education. It's a lot of what we talk about here in his YouTube channel, but he still battles with this self-doubt and this constant chase for more. So if you feel like any of that hits home with you, I'm pretty sure you're going to find some gems in this one. So enjoy this one. It's all about growth. It's all about grit, and honestly getting real about money and mindset. All right, so let's get into it. So we got introduced by a buddy of mine, Jason Rivera. Got to give you a shout out, bro. Longtime friend, and friend of yours as well, kind of collaborator in your community. David, like when I saw your story, I'm like, this is cool, because I know a lot of veterans. I know some are listening and active duty. A lot of friends, family as well. And what you've done it's pretty damn epic. I'm just going to say that. And in terms of, I don't know if I call it breaking out of the military, but it's like you changed the game. I feel like financially, probably mentally, and all of this through real estate primarily, and now all this other cool stuff is spun out of it. But I don't know. Tell me, like, what's like the big thing that you feel like we should. And maybe kind of steer this around, because real estate's a big thing, but it's like busting out of this kind of mindset, I feel like, is the bigger thing.
Yeah, there's so much to go down. Yeah, real estate's great, but there's a million real estate investing podcasts. That is how I originally got out of the rat race, so to speak. It's not why I left though. Everyone thinks like, oh, he made enough money to leave the military, so he did. No, I just got bored. When I first joined the military, the Marine Corps, it was like running and gunning and combat and training and exercises and it was a blast. And then the war ended and everything calmed down and I got promoted a bunch and I got stuck in a windowless vault with no cell phone access half the day and I was like, this sucks. Why am I doing this? Like, so at that point, it was like, yeah, I'm making more money out of the military than in. I'll take it and go do my own thing. But had I still been fulfilled and doing all the stuff I loved in the service, I would have stayed. And vice versa. Had I not had the investments, I would have also kind of been stuck not enjoying I would have been gutting it out.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got into real estate. I mean, that's great, but I kind of like the idea that I started this whole community just talking about what I was learning. I think there's so many different options for people out there just chasing a passion.
Yeah.
I mean, networking, building communities, just content. I mean, I think what you're doing right now, content, and the intellectual property is the wave of the future for sure. Branding and all of that.
Yeah, man. And I know you talk about impact too, right? It's like putting it out there. It's not just to do it, but it's like, what's the intention behind it? And obviously you have your personal story. You had a lot of friends, have a lot of friends in the military, I'm sure. And obviously now you have a community focused on helping those folks to break into real estate, but also, expand out of what they're doing. I think that's a big thing because a lot of folks, listening, could be an entrepreneur, could be an employee, could be in the military, whatever it is. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel like it's a rat race moment for you. And yeah, I'm kind of curious of maybe your mindset around that, kind of the before, the during, the after, and kind of like breaking down some of those breakthroughs for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the before, right? So I grew up in a super conservative, religious, homeschooled household. My mom was an envelope budgeter. They were still are to this day, very, very frugal, very Dave Ramsey, very save, 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 save. I can remember it's actually my book that at one point I remember I'd go steal $20 out of the gas envelope for snacks and then pretend I was going to put it back. And, I'm sure she noticed there was money missing, but she never called me out on it. So I guess
guaranteed she noticed.
Oh yeah. She's like, why am I always short? Why is David getting fat and I'm short $20?
He seems too happy over there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of and I still struggle in a lot of ways. Like, not that that's a terrible mindset. I think that's a great framework for getting out of debt and getting to zero and avoiding lifestyle creep. But I still struggle with like asking for big payouts or big percentages in deals or like my true value that I bring to the marketplace because I'm very like, I don't want it to all be about money. I don't want to, I mean, just yesterday I was talking to a coach. I'm negotiating basically my ownership percentage in a deal. It's 14 single family houses. And essentially I'm going to get the financing under my name and sign for the debt. And I raised all the money for the down payment and the renovation.
Nice.
And, he's like, what equity do you want for this? And my coach was like, you're an idiot. Ask for more. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I'm like, this guy's doing all the work. He's like, yeah, but you've got all the risk if it goes south. I was like, oh, that's a good point.
That's a good mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I still struggle with asking for, my fair shake or whatever. So that was the before, I guess. Found Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I just really, it was just, man, it was just like everything clicked when I realized like, if I can spend $100 to buy something that'll pay me $10 and I do that once a month, then at the end of the year, I'll be making, $120 a month off of my $100 a month that I invested. And then I can buy 2 and then I can buy 3 and then I can buy 4. And it scales like a hockey puck. And it was such an easy concept to grasp, not necessarily to take advantage of. And then the more you do, the more you realize like the more value I put out into the marketplace, the more I get paid. And the less I worry about money, the more I make. And now I'm probably a little too far the opposite side where it's like I made more money last month than I've made in a year prior to leaving the military.
Right on.
In January, I had more revenue in the business than I made my last year serving in the military after 13 years.
After all the upgrade or advancements, all that stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was an E6. I got out E7. So there's 9 enlisted ranks. I made it to the 7th one, and I've been in for 13 years. So decent paycheck, not not a general, but a decent, pretty solid paycheck. And when I realized that, and I was like, holy shit, my business just made, and it was 92.3 or something like that in
Yeah.
January. And obviously you don't keep all of that, but
Right.
I make all of it. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And then I'm looking at my QuickBooks, and I'm like so far the opposite now. I'm like, I have nothing left in my bank account. Where did I put all this? And it's like, I'm just like, invest, and throwing money
Yeah.
everywhere. And it's great, but I'm having to like pull back a little bit. Okay, maybe you don't
Well, it
need to
wasn't
do
always
all
like
that.
that, right? Yeah.
No, yeah. So now that it is like that, I'm like, okay, go back a little bit to the roots. Let's find that balance between the super conservative upbringing and the making money, and increase that savings gap, and life will be good. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
it's
not like you're
crazy.
popping bottles in the club. I mean, maybe you are, but like you're investing in yourself, but like heavily, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty frustrated for a little while, and then I went back and I really dug through it, and I realized it's kind of funny. This puts in perspective how little I pay attention to my money, or to money in general. Like it's just, as long as there's money coming in and going out, like I'm whatever.
Sure.
I maxed out my 2023 IRA,
Yeah.
6,500 bucks or whatever, and I'd
Yeah.
forgotten. So I'm like, why am I not? I was like, I paid myself 5 grand, but I don't have
Mhm.
anything left in the account. And I started realizing, I'm like, oh, I put 6,500 in the IRA, paid off $11,000 worth of debt, paid off my motorcycle.
Maybe your
Well,
SEP
okay,
IRA. I don't know if you got one of them, but
I
like you
that's
can
that's gonna. You got the little.
damn thumbs up. I know.
I can't get past that.
Yeah.
No, not yet. I'm talking to a friend this week about a solo or a
Yeah.
SEP.
Cool. Yeah.
Um, this was just, I told my friend, I was like, I'm going to max out my 24 IRA just so I can talk about it, like good content. And then I
Yeah.
realized, oh, you can pay off your 23 until April
Yeah.
15th. So I'll do that. And then I'll pay off 24s next month. Um,
Right
but yeah, I'm
on.
going to have to look at like a solo or a SEP, because I'm like, I could put a lot more away here, and then I could invest it
Yeah.
as a private lender or whatever.
No, I'm sure there's yeah, and yeah, my CPA's in my ear, about like, for years, I was like the value and like this ain't a tax show. I'm not a tax expert, so you go do your own damn homework. Uh, but like,
The,
so you're talking about all this, David, and I'm like, all right, money's flowing, money's great, but obviously there was that mental shift. I think like that's the
yeah.
big one, because people might be listening, they're like, that's great, David's maxing out all these things that I don't even do or haven't thought of or whatever it is, but like. I don't know, like what was that shift moment, or like was there obviously the Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Purple Book, that was like
Yeah.
my first book into entrepreneurship too. That's a shift, but like maybe some after that really had you hitting the road running.
Man, the most recent one would be the book 10x is easier than 2x. I don't know if you've read that yet.
No, I'm looking it up.
It's uh, Ben Hardy writing for Dan Sullivan.
Okay, yeah.
And it's phenomenal. Basically, I mean, it's a super same thing everybody hears all the time, right? It's a very simple way to break down outsourcing things that you shouldn't be doing or whatever. Um, Really simple concept, but something that like I've told myself a million times, and it wasn't until this year that I read that book that I really started to. So I think that was a big shift. I hired a performance coach, and then over the last year, I went from one employee to two W-2, two 1099, and two full-time VAs, and just was like, how much of this can I offload? Like, 100. I was doing video
Nice.
editing, now I'm not. I was writing my captions and my emails, now I'm not. It's just how much of this can I get rid of to focus on the thing that I'm good at? And I mean, that was a huge shift for me. Was in the military, you want to be a part of everything, have your hands in
Hmm.
everything. Um, it's kind of tough to let things let things go, but
Yeah.
it's amazing how much. I mean, I've doubled the revenue since I started doing that, just by being able to focus on things that actually bring people into the business, and bring deals into the business, and networking, which is kind of my superpower. So, I mean, really, if you boil it all the way back, I don't know that there was a massive like mind shift for me, or mindset change for me, so much as a lot of good people in my ears telling me what I needed to hear or already knew but didn't believe, to get rid of some limiting beliefs and finally start realizing like I lived with a governor my whole life. I
Really?
yeah, it's
Oh,
like
governor, like mental. Yeah, I was thinking
oh yeah,
governor,
yeah, no,
governor.
no, sorry,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
not yeah, my dad's Donald Trump. You might have heard of him.
Like, oh, okay,
No, no, no.
cool.
No, so like, you think of like a car, right? That'll go 160 miles an hour, but they stop it at 120. And I feel like I've kind of lived my whole life that way. Like, it's like, oh, I'm wrestling with a friend and I could probably tap this guy out in 20 seconds, but if I do, I might hurt him. So I lay back and
Mm,
make it, drag it out for like 3 minutes. And I kind of played that way in business. It's like there was always that part of me that didn't know what was going to happen or didn't believe what was going to happen, and laid off the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And it just took a long time for people to kind of be like, no, dude, you're undervalued, or you're underpriced, or you're undervaluing yourself, or you're bringing too much to the marketplace for what you're asking. For me to really start getting out of that shell, which is why I don't know, man. I mean, you're asking me questions and making me go. I'm like,
you're thinking, huh?
why do I? What did change in my life? It's a lot.
Here, man.
It's been a crazy road. And really, I think the sum of all of it is I finally started believing in myself. You know, that's probably the biggest piece. And for me, that took a lot of people telling me, like, you're a dumbass. This is how I see you. Maybe you should try seeing you this way. And I'm like, oh yeah, that feels good. Thank you.
Here's that mirror that we're all, we're seeing you this way, but
yeah, man, that imposter syndrome is real, and I have eaten that for years. So we're getting there, but
no, it's a work in progress, man. I mean, I feel the same, and I mean, even lately, it's like these little shifts. Something you might be told or read, and for me, it's like, oh, like the latest one is like, I'm the creator of my entire reality. I might not control the outside influences, but there's this vision, and then there's a blended reality. If I put myself out there in the right space, or do this podcast with you, David, connect with this person, whatever, go in this mastermind, it's like something cool is going to happen with this, but I got to believe and create that opportunity for myself.
That whole mindset side of things it's trippy when you start like getting to a place where I went through a divorce this year, and but not even that, like in a breakup, right? Like,
yeah,
getting to a place where you can like look at things existentially. I don't know if that's the right word for this, but it sounds cool, so we're going with it.
Sounds great.
But like looking at things from like a third party perspective and realizing, yes, that person did all these things, but they're not why I'm mad. I'm mad because I'm not regulating my emotions, and I'm choosing to live in that moment rather than going elsewhere. And like that whole woo-woo idea that the happier you are, or the more you believe in success, and blah, 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 blah. But like, it sounds like horse shit until it happens. And you're like, I told you, like, last month was the highest revenue that we've ever had. It was probably the least I've worked in like
there you go.
2 years. I was sick for the first week and a half of January, and I canceled 2 of my 3 trips that month. So it was the most I was home. Like last year, I was probably gone twice every single month. And this year, so far, January was I took 1 small trip, and it wasn't even a work trip for most of it. It was a friend trip. Yeah. And then I canceled my 2 work trips, and sat around the house, was sick and moped, and didn't do fucking much. Played dad, and
there you go.
And it was the most money I've ever had come into my life at one time. And so it's just kind of, it's just a whole weird thing. And one of my coaches is calling me out on it. He's like, I feel the imposter syndrome creeping up. I can hear you internalizing the, like, what did I do to deserve this? And you need to shut the hell up and believe that you deserve it.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it sounds like, I had this chat with someone I'm coaching right now, but he's also kind of coaching me at the same time. Like, it's kind of a cool relationship there, but it's like it's the push and pull strategy. And what you're in there is it's pull, like it's all kind of flowing. Push is that resistance. It's friction. It's too much effort. It's fucking working your ass off. You're like, why am I tired all the time? It's like, no, just let it in, and yeah, I think that's a big shift in a lot of folks. Like, we feel like the push is the only way. And it's part of it. You got to do it. Obviously, the hustle. Pretty much. Yeah. It's like, you want to be that guy?
Yeah, Wes Watson screaming at you about being a little bitch or whatever, and I'm like,
Wes is crazy. Yeah,
I'm like, damn it, man, I thought I did good today.
No, man. Yeah, you got Goggins or whoever,
Well, I have such a love-hate with Goggins, and it's mostly a hate. I'm like, dude, I like the first like 10% of your message, and after that, I need you to shut up because I struggle to turn it off, and I want to turn it off. And I'm
That's a good point.
I'm like, I get that you want to be 120%. 24/7, but I would like to be able to, leave work and go on a date and not be thinking about
Yeah.
why I'm not at work working. Like,
Yeah. Picture.
I see him like on a date, like in the mirror, just like screaming at himself, like, you could be running right now. Like, what are you
Why are
doing?
you sitting on your ass drinking wine or whatever? It's like, no.
Oh, it's such a great message, but I'm like, at some point, I'm like, I need to tune out, or I'm gonna break.
Yeah.
But
And that guy doesn't turn it off either.
never. Like,
No way.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm jealous or if I just hope you find happiness one day, but I don't know.
Both.
I'm like, is he still just like? There can't be anything left for him to prove. I don't get it, but he is such a freaking stud, though. So it's like,
Yeah, no
can't
kidding.
hate the guy. But yeah,
Well, it's
I'm
great. You see what's possible for the human, It's like, all right, I'm going to find a little in-betweener space there.
Yeah. You can be the reason that my mean is higher than my average, or whatever.
There you
Or
go.
my average is higher than my mean.
Yeah. And
I'll just be
that's the
above
thing.
average, and we'll be good.
Yeah. Just make your average incrementally better, in whatever way
Yeah.
you think is best. That's a great framework, man. Dude, and I'm thinking from the military, from you, like, I mean, you bring up coaches a lot, so you obviously took orders in the Marines. Had to.
Sometimes I
Sometimes,
was good
yeah.
at it. Other times I'd question a lot of things.
That's probably a good thing too.
But
it's like,
when you're in the military, they don't think
that's
so.
true.
At least
good point.
I got kicked out of a meeting at one point. It was pretty funny.
Yeah,
I stood in for my boss when he was out of town, and by the end of the meeting, they were like, "Don't ever come back in his place." And I was like, but they were all mad because my questioning was good, and it basically got the entire plan turned around. And I was like, "Well, you guys planned a bunch of stupid shit, so I'm sorry."
had to let you know.
Yeah, like I happen to be the transportation expert in the group, and you guys are all mad because I'm calling you out on. It was anyway.
Yeah.
Really a boring topic for most people, but it's when you're the junior guy stuck in there with a bunch of guys that are normally, shitting down your throat. It's like,
Yeah.
This is my chance to poke holes. I'm gonna
Like,
poke
I'm gonna
away.
help. Yeah. Good for you, man. Well, I mean, translates to what you're doing here. You're putting it out there and in your own voice. And I mean, you got to listen to the coaches though. They're obviously guiding you, but then you still got to play your game.
Yeah.
Is that something? Obviously, you have your own community mastermind. You do real estate. We talked about that. Kind of curious about some of the specifics as like just a framework so people understand. I guess the style of real estate. There's like syndication deals and stuff like that.
I'm the worst example of the shiny object syndrome. So I tell people if you can buy it and hold on to it, that's my niche. So I mean, current portfolio is actually I sold a lot of houses. I think I'm down to 8 single family and duplex that I own myself. And then I still have 1 apartment complex. We just sold another, a hotel and an RV park. And then I'm under contract on a duplex, and I'm going to be a 50% partner or whatever on a 14 single family houses, little portfolio I'm buying with a buddy. And then
Just 50%? Are you sure? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was going to say 30.
And there you go then.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, I'm in some syndications as well. So I'm a very, very, very small owner in 2 that they're like 900 doors, 60 or $77 million worth of real estate. But I mean, I own like 1/3%. And then I'm probably a 8 or 9% stake in a 130 unit hotel that we just bought in Tennessee. And that's, it'll be a $14 million project. And so I raised like $1.25 million for it. And then I'm doing all the marketing and stuff like that. So
Right on. Dude,
yeah,
I mean, I love it. And this is where, I just own my home here in San Diego. It's expensive as shit, obviously. Have some land, so can develop. But yeah.
Yeah. What part of San Diego?
East of downtown, about 20, 30 minutes.
Cool.
So it's, La Mesa area for
Nice.
everybody who wants to look it up. And
If you said North Park with land to develop, I'd be like, why are you not building?
I would be all over it. No, there's demand where I'm at, big demand. So
Yeah.
it's just, how do I approach it? Hey, I just want to pause this episode really fast and shout out a podcast that's also on the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. This one's a podcast that's hosted by someone I've followed for years. The name is Donald Miller. He has the whole Story brand book and all the different stuff online. He hosts the podcast called Business Made Simple. The premise is to basically take the mystery out of growing your business. And he recently had on, one of the other guys I follow is Alex Hermosi. And right at the beginning of the year, they're talking about facing uncertainty in your business. And Alex and Donald, they talk about different ways, 4 different ways to basically shore up your business to ride the uncertain times that inherently are the ones we're living in 2024. So make sure to go check that out. Go listen to Business Made Simple, that episode with Alex Hermosi, but also the other ones, wherever you get your podcasts. Are you tired of the hassle of building online sales funnels? You know, I get it. And you started your business for freedom and not to be chained to your laptop all day long. And thankfully, there is an all-in-one platform that makes this process super easy so you can start attracting customers online. It's a tool called Kartra, and it has every tool you need to grow. So every Kartra account comes stocked with a bunch of done-for-you campaigns that are designed, connected, and written for you. All you got to do is customize them to your liking, and you can launch a fully built sales funnel in minutes. So make marketing easy on yourself. Visit www.hustleandflowchart.com/Kartra and snag a free 30-day trial of Kartra. And again, that's hustleandflowchart.com/KARTRA. And I just think of, real estate. It seems daunting for a lot of folks, and I'm just speaking to my own self right now too. But as an entrepreneur, someone that might be like, you're busy doing your own shit, you got your own routines, like, is there a, not a silver bullet, but like a direction you think people should explore, or at least dip their toes into, or just jump all in the game of real estate?
I mean, it all depends on like what you are looking to get out of it, right? So I didn't even mention it, but I built and sold a wholesaling company year and a half, 2 years ago. So I mean, I've kind of dabbled in that side and house flips and all that as well. And it's like, if you're at that phase of life where you've got no money and a ton of time, then like wholesaling is probably the way to go, because you can go and just bang on doors and send handwritten letters, and you can do it really cheap, and you find one deal that can make you a pretty solid chunk of change, then you can slowly build from there. But if you're in, already an entrepreneur and you've got money and no time, then obviously you're not going to go build a real estate business. So maybe passively investing in syndications. I mean, most of my accredited investors in my bigger deals are guys who are like, Amazon employees, make $300,000-400,000 a year, or, big time, high salary earners, or they've, they're entrepreneurs and they've got big windfall and they're accredited. Yeah. And they don't want to spend the time. So they do the quick analysis and they're like, you can run everything. Here's the cash. And they just sit back and collect their K1, and, and that works out well for some. There's a middle ground though. I mean, if you're, even if you got to buy a place, well, you don't have to buy a place. You should buy a place to live if you're going to be there, rather than just renting. And like, my favorite strategy for people getting started is house hacking. You buy a fourplex, you live in one unit, rent the other 3, and you can live for virtually free in pretty much any market. I even have a buddy who bought a house, a fourplex in downtown San Diego, and he pays like $400 a month to live in it.
Wow.
And it's like,
you can do it there. Yeah.
It's like, he's not technically living for free, but he's paying $400 and his tenants are paying down $3,000 a month on his principal. So he's doing all right.
And the fact that I think what was just recently, San Diego has been said to be the most expensive place in the world or something to
it's up there for sure.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, makes sense.
Whenever I hear that
here,
stuff,
that's all I know.
Whenever I hear that stuff, I'm always like, it's so skewed. Because if you've ever looked at, and I only know this because I was on a podcast, we did a conversion on currencies, and we were talking real estate prices with this guy that I recorded with in Qatar. And dude, some of the real estate in like the Qatar, Saudi, Dubai area,
insane.
Like, yeah, it's like you could buy, 10 of your houses in San Diego for the cost of your current house.
That's what I was going to call BS when I read that. And I was like, yeah, right. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely, maybe they mean like in the Western hemisphere. I don't know. There's always a criteria in there, but it's definitely, San Diego is definitely not a cheap place to live. San Diego, San Francisco, DC, New York City, Miami, Hawaii, they're all, pricey. And that's my biggest, whenever I talk about house hacking, people are like, oh, it doesn't work in expensive markets. I'm like, bullshit.
Mm.
There's always a reason not to invest in real estate, but like, they're like, well, I won't live for free. I'm like, well, you'd pay $2,000, $3,000 a month in rent. So I'd say if you're living for even half of that, it's a win because you're building equity and cashing appreciation and learning how to be a landlord.
True.
And honestly, I'd rather, I mean, I don't know about you, I'd rather pay $1,500 a month than $3,000 a month to live in the 2-1. So
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. You can start stacking. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great strategy. So it really just depends on where you're at in your journey. Like, obviously, that's not going to work for a family of 5,
True.
but there's always a way. Yeah.
There's always a way, man. And yeah, I mean, I think of, yeah, here in San Diego, it's like my mother-in-law, like perfect opportunity right now to do the house hacking thing. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to send her this little clip here just so it's not coming from me. Penny, if you're listening.
Cut yourself off and be like, yeah, look at this podcast I heard the other day.
David's brilliant, right? Yeah. No, I love it. And that's where it's approachable for all levels. Cause I hear, you know, I've learned the whole syndication deal. You know, Marky and Sitch, you know, he's a buddy of mine as well. He's been on the show a long time ago now, but yeah, used to be in San Diego. He sat me down at a coffee shop, and Markin's rad. And he totally laid out what you do to get in the syndication deal. I'm like, that's actually not that complicated once you understand it. And accredited investors, sure, you have all these criteria or whatever, but don't need to go down that now, really. But it's a hell of a
around that too. So yeah,
there you go. See, and it's who you know. It's getting out there, start talking to people, right? Community wise. And that's why I wanted to transition to a little bit, like, because you have your mastermind, your community. You were telling me that that's crushing as well. Like, you have real estate popping off, but then you have this, obviously, content. Your YouTube channel, podcast is kind of like the glue, I would imagine.
Yeah.
How's that look? What are some thoughts there? I mean, shit. Like, just call out some of this stuff so people can explore it for first step here.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say the biggest part of the community is we have a Facebook group with 65,000 people in it, and then I've got YouTube, podcast, Instagram, TikTok. It's all under either Military Millionaire or From Military to Millionaire. You can find it on your favorite platform, and it's just it's slowly built out a community. It all started as it's funny because I didn't have any intention of I didn't know what I was building. I wanted to learn how to write. And a buddy of mine said, you should start a blog. And I was like, great, what should I write about? He's like, just document what you're doing in real estate. You're a military dude buying houses. Other people do that, just, whatever. And then a friend of mine actually came up with the domain name because all my domain ideas were terrible. And he was like digging around. He's like, how about this? From military to millionaire.com. I was like, oh, that's catchy. I want to be a millionaire one day. And so I was just documenting the journey. And then, other people started to follow along, and then other people would ask questions. So I'd write articles based on their questions or research things to write articles about their questions. And then, people would recommend guests. And it just, over time, one day I woke up and was like, holy shit, I have a business. Like, what do I do with all this? I was like, I've been paying to build this thing because I didn't monetize anything. And at the time, I probably had 50 to 100,000, followers across all platforms. And I was like, I should probably do something with this. And so... I'd been in a couple mastermind groups. They were super helpful to me. So I decided to start one, and I had no idea how cool that community was going to be. The people in there are far and away crushing it more than most people I know. They're doing deals together. They hold each other accountable because it's all service members and vets. So they're a little rough around the edges sometimes, calling people out.
Hey, it's what's needed. Well, they're used to it though.
Yeah, and it's great, and it's not the style for everyone, and that's fine. That's why we don't allow everyone in. So it's just service members and vets that are all serious about. It's not even all real estate; it's financial freedom, right? So you got guys acquiring businesses. We've got business owners. We've got, a bunch of real estate for sure. But that community, in a lot of ways, it saved me when I got out of the military because it was like I had this place to go and. Interact with other service members and vets, and I felt fulfilled helping, and gave me a sense of purpose and identity, and all those things people struggle with when they leave the military. Really helped with that. And then over just this past year, I kind of realized like this should be my one thing. I should probably focus on this thing because it's more fulfilling, it's more enjoyable, and it does happen to make a decent amount of money just by sheer volume. I mean, it's underpriced, but it's we've got 300 23 members now, and
Solid.
it's awesome.
Dang. I mean, that's the thing is documenting the journey, man. It's like such a great way to start for anybody. And, we all got something to express or put out there. So you might as well package it up, do it in a way that's less friction, but eventually, maybe get a camera, a microphone. You can even start guesting if you don't want to start your own thing,
Yeah.
but get in front of people and start just talking about it. And
Absolutely.
something develops, as long as you're leading them down the journey to the next step. That's kind of how I think of it, at least. Man, I mean, yeah, definitely. Yeah, check out the YouTube video, even if you're not a vet or in the service right now. Go check that out. And from military to millionaire. Well, I guess I don't know if you look up that or your name, either way. But I'll link it all up. But what yeah, man. Like, I'm just thinking of like what keeps you like now. This is more like the flowchart side of like my brain. We talked a little bit about this already, like living life with a governor. There was that whole kind of like get past that point. What are some things now as you're feeling like you're kind of humming with the real estate stuff, the mastermind community, all that? Like, what keeps you in the game and feeling grounded? Obviously, you went through a divorce, so it's like you got some shakeups happening in your life. It's getting real. What keeps you kind of level-headed, content? Yeah.
I just love helping people.
Sweet.
And it's funny because I would never like, I don't like one-on-one coaching, and I don't like the pressure of like the whatever. I like, to put it in the most selfish of terms, I like the feeling when somebody comes back to me and tells me they succeeded because of something that I told them. And that's, the selfish angle on it, but it's less that I enjoy just putting out free stuff and hoping somebody gets something out of it, and more that I absolutely love the moments. Well, just yesterday, here you go. Here's an example. Yesterday, my buddy, I won't name him, buddy calls me. He's like, yo, I got this killer deal, beachfront, East Coast. I need like 151,000 to take this down and do everything. The numbers pencil amazing. It's $100,000 undervalued, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm flattered that you hit me up, but I did just buy a hotel. I'm a little cash poor at the moment because I just invested, a chunk in this $7 million purchase and we've got $3 million renovation budget and all this other crazy stuff. And I was like, but we started talking, and I was like, dude, why don't you just ask the seller if they'll carry back the down payment? So you get your normal loan, and then 25% of it you just pay back to the seller. You'd be in for zero. You'd have a little bit higher payment because you're paying them. And he was like, well, I thought about that, but I don't want to come across like needy, like I don't have the down payment. I was like, that's not how you approach it. You approach it as, hey, you bought this for 200. It's public record. You can see it. It's worth 605. And if you take a $405,000 capital gains tax, it's all going to be in this massive tax bracket. But if you take, 250 of that, it's still that big tax bracket, but the other 150 you slowly whittle out over the next decade with plus you're earning 5-7% interest on it. So you're earning a return guaranteed, not S&P 500 maybes, but guaranteed return on your money, and you're paying less in capital gains. The less in capital gains actually makes your, it might be a 5% return, but if you're paying 23% instead of 30% on it in taxes, now it's a 12% return guaranteed. Plus they're making whatever 5% on 150K is, or 7% on 150K, and they're not having to deal with tenants. And he's like, oh, I hadn't thought about pitching it that way. He texted me back this morning. He's like, well, we've got a call scheduled. The husband loved it. The listing agent loved it. Got to talk to the wife. He's like, you want to hop on a call and we can all chat through it. Like, so it's little things like that where it's like, that's something I do in my head all the time, and I've bought a bunch of properties that way. But theoretically, if everything works out, knock on wood, one phone call saved this guy 150 grand and having to deal with a partner.
Yeah.
And, partnerships can be great, but they can also be terrible. So he doesn't have to roll the dice on that. He's going to own 100% of a house for, nothing down. He'll furnish it all himself. He'll do all the closing costs himself and all that. And he'll have this house that he can Airbnb beachfront, and it's going to be a killer deal. Stuff like that just makes me so happy because I'm like, in my head, it's like a totally normal conversation, but I'm like, this guy didn't even think about it. And, one phone call can make that a win for everybody.
Yeah. And also you like flip the switch. It sounds like in his brain, he just made that a reality. Like, my brain doesn't think like that yet. I would imagine the way all those scenarios in yours is, I would imagine through experience, just doing deals and learning.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
creative little nerdy, lefty. I'm a lefty, so
Oh,
that's what they
okay.
say, right?
I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a left-hander too. I just don't. I gotta learn.
Well, your creative brain's working through the podcast. Mine was all real estate for a little while.
Good point. Yeah.
The podcast came second.
Hey, that's perfect, man. Documenting.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
actually, like I'm just curious, selfishly too, to like trigger a little bit more of that brain and that thinking. Obviously, getting into deals, you can also get into bad deals. Are there some good resources or ways to explore that kind of thinking and deal making that you just kind of gave an example of?
Yeah, I guess the king of creative financing is the sub two community, Pace Morby. He's a really solid dude. Now, granted, his community is not free, but does give a lot of really good resources and information.
Cool.
I'm trying to think if I ever posted it. I actually have for my mastermind. I did like a 12 class video series on like what is creative financing, how do you negotiate it, how do you talk to a seller about it, because
Yeah.
people think creative financing, they think seller financing, which is great, but there's so much more to it. And then they get to this point where they're like, there's this whole mantra on the internet like, oh, you'll never land seller financing unless you ask. And so people will just kind of run around and go, hey, are you open to seller financing? And it's like, grandma doesn't know what the hell seller financing is. She just wants to sell her house to get some cash.
Yeah.
So if you run around and ask that question, you're never going to find the best deals. But if you just try to solve problems and then you have all these tools in your tool belt, I've landed properties with 0 down, 0 interest, where somebody's like, I flipped a house once. We couldn't agree on price. And I was like, look, man, I can come up the $3,000 to your offer, but the only way I can do it is if you let me pay you when I sell the house. And he thought about it and he's like, yeah, sure. And he was so set on winning his price over whatever that it didn't click, that he literally let me buy a house 0 down, no interest, and no payments for 12 months. And then when I sold the house after we were done renovating it, I cut him a check out of the profit. So I didn't
Nice.
put a dollar into that house other than, the renovation, which, to be fair, the renovations were like $140,000 on that house. So put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't
What you
paying
do.
interest and I wasn't paying for the house. I paid him his money afterwards. So,
And that's
just,
where it's like what price and terms. Friend mentor
yeah.
of mine, Roland Frazier. He's like, you
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
one. It's Roland or follow
Yeah,
his
yeah.
stuff.
Well, I've know who Roland is for sure. Yeah, yeah.
He's a brilliant guy. Yeah, he's luckily out here in San Diego, so we meet up occasionally. But
Nice.
exactly what you're saying. He's like, price and terms, pick one. So it's like, well, you let him have the price. It's like, great, I get the terms and I get creative now.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'll have to go back and look. I can't remember if I posted that publicly anywhere or if I kept it just for my mastermind. But even if I kept it for my mastermind, there's a couple videos that I know I did put out there. So
Yeah.
I'll run
Okay.
through that and I'll shoot it your way.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
David. Well, cool. Before we wrap, is there anything like super exciting or something that's just kind of keeping you up at night that you're maybe learning, diving into, obsessing over? It could be anything. I'm just kind of curious.
Man, well, what I'm really obsessing over is buying a Porsche this year.
There you go.
I've been a car guy for such a long time, and I'm finally at a place where I sold all my toys to get into real estate. My Harley and my S2000 and all that.
Cool.
And now I'm like, oh, I can finally buy whatever. But as far as like the life side, honestly, for the first time in a long time, I feel like things are just in alignment and just moving, and I'm sleeping and I'm not stressing, and
Nice.
it's good. So, what am I excited about? I'm about to launch another course for within the mastermind. It'll be free for all them. That's how to house hack using specifically like tailored towards the VA loan,
Hmm.
and then it'll be the most detailed house hacking guide I've put together. And I'm
Nice.
just
That's
excited
cool.
about growing the community, man, and helping more people.
Right on. Well, hey, for the vets out there, people that can exercise the VA loans, how can they find that community specifically?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you're gonna love this. This is a Brandon Turner idea. I always have to shout him out, but I bought this domain and I'm so happy about it. So if you go to thebestpodcastguest.com, you can get my free download of my book and find all my social media there. So
Dope, man. That is a
I know.
great name.
We were like looking for URLs. He's like, we got to come up with something creative that people will remember. And then I just goofingly I typed that in and it was available. And I was like, well, there we go.
Mine.
I was like, that's hilarious. So,
Dude, it's great. It's memorable too. The bestpodcastguest.com.
and it's especially fun when I get to say that to somebody who's like, a way better podcast guest or podcaster than I am. And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
own this domain. I'm the best podcastguest.com. And I can just see the look on their face. And I want to just be like, I mean, I know you're a better guest, but you don't have the domain. So,
You
like,
mother. I'll sell it to you.
just wait until I get on like Rogan one day and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'm the best podcast guest. He's gonna be like,
.com.
you asshole.
Yeah. Take that,
But,
Rogue.
anyway.
Dude, yeah, David, this is incredible, and it's got me reinvigorated. Yeah, my wife and I've been talking a lot about real estate a lot lately, so I'll be passing this her way as well, and get that noodle going more. So
Yeah.
appreciate you, man. And when you're in San Diego, hit me up.
I'll be out there end of March. So yeah, let's hang out.